John the 11th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit, and deeply moved. He said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. But some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. There was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, already there is such a stench, because he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me. But I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in cloth. Jesus said to them, Unbind him and let him go. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. This story is one of my top 5 stories in the entire Bible. This one, right here. And it's in my top 5 stories of the Bible because it is the most real, I think. We get the true feeling of what it is to be human and experience loss. And at the same time, we get, towards the end of the story, the truth about the power of God to bring life from death. It's a fantastic story because it is so true. Prior to this moment, Martha and Mary had sent for Jesus. They said, Listen, our brother is dying. Your friend Lazarus is dying. And Jesus stayed. He didn't leave right away. He waited days. And then word came and said, Never mind, Lazarus is dead. And so he told his disciples, No, Lazarus is just asleep. So they go to where Lazarus and Mary and Martha are, and Martha meets him first on the road and says the exact same thing. If you had been here, my brother would have died. If you'd have been here. And then when Mary finds out that Jesus is on his way, she goes to meet him where he is on the road, and she kneels at his feet and says, If you had been here, my brother would not have died. Every time I read it in my mind, there is no way that these 2 women are not angry on some level. There is no way that in their grief and their understanding of who Jesus is, that there is not a little bit of anger. You could have come, and you could have saved him from death. You could have been here. I don't know many people who have not said that to God at some point. I don't know many people who have not said in their prayers to God, if you'd have been here, if you'd have been here, my friend would have died. If you'd have been here, my loved one wouldn't have gotten sick this quickly. If you'd have been here, my life wouldn't have fallen apart if you'd have been here. And Jesus, who is fully human and fully divine, sees his friends weeping. Because Martha and Mary and Lazarus were not just disciples of Jesus. Martha, Mary, and Lazarus were friends of Jesus. He spent time with them throughout his journey in ministry. They cared for he and the other disciples. They're friends. He loved Lazarus. And so when he sees the outpouring of emotion and grief, he meets it with his own. He meets it with his own. He is greatly disturbed in spirit. He is torn up. And so he asks them, where are you living? Where is my friend Lazarus? And the people respond to him by saying, Lord, come and see. Now, up until now, this come and see has only been spoken by Jesus. When Jesus calls his disciples in the very beginning, he says, what are you looking for? And then it says, come and see. He invites people over and over and over again, come and see. Come and see what God is doing in him. Come and see the Messiah. Come and see the kingdom of God being brought into the world through his healing and his exorcisms and his feeding of the 5,000 and his welcoming of everyone and his forgiveness of sins. Come and see what God is doing. Come and see the kingdom draw near. It's Jesus' invitation over and over and over again. But this time, the crowd is the one that says, come and see. Mary and Martha are the ones that say, come and see. We are the ones that say, come and see. Come and see my loved one is dead. Come and see the illnesses that we have to struggle with. Come and see the struggle of trying to feed our families. Come and see how hard it is for those who don't have the right name or the right place in life. Come and see how many people are starving because we as human beings cannot not be selfish. Come and see how many people don't have homes. Come and see how war is justified. Come and see how many people die because we can't figure out a way to, I lost my word, cure illnesses. Come and see how many kids are dying day after day after day. Come and see the suffering. Humanity asks Jesus to come and see too. Asks God to come and see what it is. And God does. God entered into our very life as a human being so that God could take in everything that is the human experience. God became human just like us so that God can share that experience and destroy it. Destroy the power that it has, not necessarily take it away, but understand it and remove its power and give a hope and a promise. And so Jesus, taking hold of the invitation, says, take the stone away. And Martha says, well, listen, he's been dead 4 days, and it's going to stink. It's not a great idea. Not a great idea. You know what that smells like. Why would we take this stone away? And then Jesus calls her back to what he had been telling her all along. Did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? That's that invitation. Did I not tell you to come and see? And so, they roll the stone away, and Jesus prays, asking God to hear him and asking God to help the crowd see what is about to happen and believe that Jesus is the one sent from God. And he calls Lazarus by name. Lazarus, come out. In the Gospel according to John, the use of the first name is important in relationship with Jesus. Jesus doesn't say any magical words. He doesn't say any particular prayer that has anything to do with Lazarus being raised from the dead. He just tells the dead man, Lazarus, come out. Later on at the resurrection, when Mary is at the tomb and doesn't know who she's looking at, Jesus reveals the glory of God when he says, Mary. That relationship is powerful. And so when he calls Lazarus to come out, Lazarus does. He comes out of his tomb, his hands and feet are bound with strips of cloth, and his face is wrapped. He is prepared for burial. And Jesus doesn't say anything else to the crowd. He just says, unbind him and let him go. Unbind him. In our baptisms, each of us are called by name. In our baptisms, each of us are called by Christ and said, and told to come out of our tombs. Because that's what happens at our baptisms. We are promised resurrection right from the moment that the water and the Spirit meets us until the day of resurrection. We are promised that. And in our baptisms, we are not just expecting to be raised from the dead on the last day, but God understands that we are chained by sin and in our own tombs day after day after day. Jesus says, come out in our baptism every single day. Come out of that which is death and live into my new life that I have created for you. Come out of whatever is holding you back in fear and grief and confusion and loss. And come out to my light and truth and promise and opportunity and vision of what the kingdom of God looks like now as it's breaking in. Come out and live a new life now. Jesus unbinds us. He's the one in our baptisms that takes off all of the grave clothes that bind us up and let us go. We're not bound in sin anymore. We're not afraid of death anymore. We're not afraid of whatever the world is going to throw at us, that it's not life-giving ever. Because Jesus has freed us from all of that. And so what that means is people who have been unbound by Jesus in our baptisms, every time we meet someone in the world who is made in the image of God and loved by God, Jesus tells us, unbind them and let them go. We get to be the ones that meet our neighbors and our friends and our family members and meet them in that place that we all share, where we have been bound by this broken humanity. And unbind each other. Because we receive the same promises of life and love. And so when we go out into the world and we see people who are bound up with hunger, unbind them by feeding. When we see people who are bound up by not being able to be heard, unbind them and give them a voice. When people are bound up in whatever the journey is in illness or struggle, unbind them and walk alongside. When people are bound up, not able to forgive or feel forgiveness, unbind them and show them what it looks like. We who are free get to go into a world that is bound up in darkness and speak truth to it. That this isn't the end. This tomb that we like to place ourselves in is not powerful at all. Because if Jesus is raised from the dead, nothing else matters. Nothing matters other than that. Because Jesus is raised from the dead, we all get to live a better and new life. Filled with hope, filled with love, filled with compassion, filled with mercy, all because we begin all those things first. So as we go about our daily lives and we ask Jesus to come and see, and he then invites us to see his new life, remember what you believe in. We have a God that comes to see, to walk alongside us, to unbind us from it. And that's what we celebrate. That's the promise that our loved ones have received, and that's the promise and example that we get to carry out. We've been unbound. One by others. And go and see what God is doing. Amen.